Running an ultra is hard, but if it's on your bucket list, maybe you've signed up to do one in the future, or you're thinking about it, well, we've gone straight to professional ultra runner Tom Evans, winner of UTMB CCC, to get all of his top tips for ultra running.
And if you stick around to the end of this video, I'll be sharing with you my one top tip that I used to win CCC at UTMB in 2018, so make sure you hang around for that.
First though, please do hit subscribe and tap that bell icon so you get notified when we upload new videos all about running to the running channel, which we do every week. If you haven't heard of Tom Evans, where have you been? He has got so many accolades to his name. Probably best known for winning CCC at UTMB in 2018. Tom burst onto the ultra running scene in 2017, running the Marathon des Sables, after having a cheeky bet with a friend. I love that story. And then ended up getting the best European time in the race's history. Just a casual little first race there for you. Amazing. Since then, he has grown from strength to strength with some of his achievements, including first place and course record at the Tarawera 100K, winning UTMB CCC, breaking records on the Coastal Challenge Costa Rica and South Downs Way 50. And even COVID couldn't stop Tom. While we were all at home feeling sorry for ourselves, well, some of us were doing backyard marathons, Tom went one better and did the 3 peaks on a treadmill. Brilliant. So, if you didn't know him before, you are certainly going to want to know Tom now. And the good news is I am here with him to pick his brains about all things ultra running. Tom, thank you so much for joining us.
No, I am honoured to be back on the show, so thank you very much.
So we're going to kick off with the big question. If you had one tip for your fellow ultra runners, what would it be?
I think for me the most important thing is to set a goal. And then once your goal has been set, you can then plan your training around that. So for me, I find that specificity is the key. And in order to be able to train specifically for a course, you need to replicate the terrain that you're training on. So, but if you live in the UK and you're planning on a race in Chamonix, you might not be able to get out there the whole time. So it's thinking slightly outside the box. And what my top tip for that is to print out and laminate the course profile for the race that you're going to do, and then you can then do it on the treadmill with the right incline, and you can set the speed. For me, that helps to keep it fairly interesting and keeps you motivated when things are tough and I'm stuck in the UK.
Okay, so once you've hit the trails then, any tips for our runners out there?
I think the first thing is to keep your head up and for your eyes looking forwards and not at your feet down below you.
That's such a weird thing to do when you're running because you obviously want to see where your feet are going. Do you ever worry that you're going to trip? Like, have you got any tips for the more nervous runners?
Yeah, I think the great thing about running on the trails is pace doesn't matter, and you run on how you're feeling and you listen to your body. And I think if you are a little bit more nervous on the trails and there's a bit of a sketchy bit, then you can slow down, you can walk, and if you need to, you can pause your watch. But actually, I tend not to because it's all part of the learning experience, and the more you do something, you'll improve at it, and fast forward 6 months and the bit that you used to walk on, you'll now be running on.
Pacing is such a crucial part of racing, but I know that over long distances it can become increasingly difficult to pace yourself, especially if there's a range of elevation. Actually, normally I end up with like a bit of a slow death march towards the end because I've gone out too hard. So what are your top tips when it comes to pacing for ultras, especially on trails?
Yeah, Anna, pacing is incredibly important, and when I'm training on the trails, I use a real combination of pace and feel. Some days they will match up together and be exactly how I thought, and then other days they won't be. And for me, having features such as Pace Pro really allow me to better understand my body and how fast I'm moving, whether that's on flat terrain, inclines and declines. And typically when I'm running, I do like to run sort of at a fairly even effort. So if on my Pace Pro it is fairly even, but what I will always do is sort of save a little bit in the tank for that final downhill, because training sessions aren't complete until you've completed it, and races aren't won until you finish them.
So Tom, speaking of hills, your watch can actually help you with the ascent. So what are your tips when it comes to running uphill?
So I think I get asked this question a lot, and there are a lot of people who do not like running up hills. And for me, I have a mantra of control the controllables. And when you are running uphill, sort of the normal question people ask is, how much longer have I got? And for me, with ClimbPro, what that does is, one, it gives you that real-time information of how much longer of the climb that you've got to do. And that's really motivating, because you know how much longer you've got to work for. And also when you're planning training sessions, or when you're looking at the route of a race, if you've not got the luxury of going out and running the course before, you can see everything on your computer and then on your watch when you're in the race.
So Tom, what are the things that we can do as runners to improve our efficiency when it comes to running uphill?
I think that's the key word, efficiency. What we want to do is to run faster with less effort. And when we come to talking on hills, the best way to improve your efficiency is by improving your technique. So my sort of 3 top tips would be, firstly, to increase your cadence, take shorter steps, but more of them. Secondly would be arm drive. If you can drive your arms, your legs will follow where your arms are going. And then my 3rd point is that you need to look up. We spoke about it earlier, but actually looking up keep you nice and tall, you'll find it easier to breathe, and you will become more efficient.
So let's talk about navigation. Have you ever got lost out on the trails? I know I have.
Yes, I have. Being ex-military, I have got lost quite a bit. My map reading is not the best. But now when I go out on the trails, I always have my sort of maps feature up, just so I can't get lost, because one, it helps you, well, it just knows where you're going. People like knowing what they're doing, and you like those controllable factors, and no one wants to get lost. And especially if you're in a 100-mile race, you don't want to get lost, because you don't want to run any more miles. So make life as easy as you can for you, and it will give you that sort of warm, fuzzy feeling that you're in the right place, and every step you're taking is getting you closer to the finish line.
Okay, so I think you and I both know that ultra running is kind of an all-day picnic. You're out running, you have some snacks, you go to do some more running, you have some snacks. So how do you make sure that you are fueling correctly when hydration and nutrition play such a key role in these long races? I
think you're right. I think nutrition and hydration is key to success, whether you're there to win a race or to finish a race. And taking on that nutrition that is specific to the individual is really important. And there can be certain times in races where you may forget to eat and forget to drink. So actually for me, having a feed and a hydration alert through my watch just gives me that gentle nudge, that gentle reminder to keep consuming my nutrition and my hydration products. And like I use the example of at CCC and at UTMB, there is a 13-mile downhill section. People don't like running, people don't like eating when they're running downhill, because your stomach is going up and down. So people forget to eat, you then get to the bottom of the valley, and you've got a big climb. So people get there and they're knackered and they're really tired, and they've not got the nutrition, and they're really slow on the uphill. So all of that hard work that they've done to get there, they then can't put into place. So making sure that you can consume these different foods, whether it's in liquid form or it's in solid form, is really important. And the only way to get good at it is to practice in training, and you can then put that into practice when you race. Because most people DNF from races because of stomach issues. and you don't want that, it's such a controllable factor. You don't want that having an impact on your day.
So as runners, there is so much data and different metrics available to us. Is there anything in particular that you take into consideration when you're trail running?
Yeah, I think sometimes it's great to go out on the trails and to just listen to your body. You might be really tired, it might be a recovery run, and listening to your body sometimes can be the best way. And for me, listening to myself will always be a factor. But like you said, we've got so many different metrics that we can use. And there are a couple that I find really, really useful. So, for example, heart rate. Heart rate is brilliant, and for me, every training session I do serves a purpose. Whether it's a slow, easy recovery run, or it's a tempo, or it's intervals. Your heart rate zone for that is so important, and to be able to see what zone that you're in an individualized heart rate zone is really important to make sure that you are training the right effort and the right intensity for what you're supposed to be doing. Because what I tend to find is people, and I have done it myself, is I run my easy runs too fast and my heart rate zone is too high. So what I have done is I have changed and I have individualized the training zones, my heart rate zones on my Garmin. I'm then making sure that I am ticking every single box, and I'm making sure that I'm progressing in the right ways that I should be.
You said there are a couple that you pay attention to. What's the other?
So pace. I think pace is still, yes, it's not as relevant on the trails, but actually if you know, right, I normally I can run from here to here, there'll still be flat bits on the trails, and if you know, right, I'm very comfortable running at 7-minute miling, then you can sort of kind of relate to it. And actually if you see that you're going really fast, actually you can afford to back off a little bit, or actually you feel, right, I can push this up. And everyone loves sort of chasing times and things, and it can be really motivating for you. Sort of if there is a segment that sort of your friends have run on and actually you want to run faster, you can work out how quick you need to run, because we are all really competitive, and actually if that helps to motivate you on a run, then that's fantastic.
So when it comes to training for an ultra, what are the things that we could be doing to help support our running that aren't running?
Yeah, so in a runner's career, whether you are a professional runner or you're just doing it because you love it, you will have setbacks and you will get injured. Myself, for example, I am pretty injured at the moment. I've just had knee surgery, but I'm still able to train. And you can still find things that you can do in order to either maintain fitness or to improve fitness and to help recovery. And that's if you're injured. But if you're training if you are able to run, there is only so many miles, so many hours a week that you can run. And yes, that is the most important part of your training, but there is still lots of accessory work that you can do on the side. So whether it's finding an extra 2 hours of aerobic training that you can do on the bike, or it's doing some strength sessions in the gym. And what these strength sessions will do is they will teach your body to recruit muscle fibers. That's what strength training does. So actually, you're able to use 100% of the muscles in your legs when you need them. So actually the workload is spread out. If you've got 100 people doing a job or 80 people doing a job to the same standard, the 100 people are going to finish sooner. There it's more efficient, which is what we've spoken about a lot, and we want to be as efficient as possible, and that's what strength conditioning does.
So what tips do you use to help keep you motivated during training for such a long race?
So training for an ultramarathon is really tough, purely because of the nature of the race. It takes such a long time, and if we're training specifically, we're going to be out for such a long time. So there are a couple of sort of different mind tricks, I guess you'd call them, for me to stay motivated during my training. So I guess the first thing that I do is I just break everything down, and if I'm racing 100 miles, I don't see it as a 100-mile race. I see it as either 10 miles or 25 miles or whatever you want to do, just into these bite-sized chunks to make it a bit more manageable. And then another tip that sort of I learned a couple of years ago that I now use is, instead of tracking my training in mileage, I track it in time. Because running 100 miles in the UK, in London, is very different to running 100 miles in the Alps. And in the Alps, it will probably take more than twice as long. So how can you track the training? So by doing that, and what I do is I log all of my training, sort of both online and in paper. But training for me is more than just training. As a professional athlete, training is a huge part of my life, and my sort of personal life and my professional life sort of mix into one. It's pretty difficult to compartmentalize everything. So what I do is I journal and I diary, and yes, some of it will include training and how I felt in training sessions, but then others was how I felt during the day, because it's such a huge part. And if you are training for an ultramarathon, it can become sort of all-encompassing, and it can seem like there is so much to do. So actually by doing this, by tracking everything, then yeah, it can sort of help you get motivated. When you do have a bad day, you can look back and see how you dealt with the previous one, and you can then look forward onto how you're gonna challenge into the next one. So yeah, I think it's a really useful tip.
I've learned loads from sitting chatting to you about ultras, but for those people who've hung around right until the end, we did promise you a very top tip from Tom, which is the one thing that you think helped you win CCC in 2018.
I think with this, people are going to expect, oh, I wore this or this was in my training. But if I'm being completely honest, the thing that I think allowed me to win CCC was patience. And by that, I mean not working too hard too early, and sort of using and working with my pace. If I felt bad, I'd slow down. If I felt good, I'd speed up. And just being really, really patient, because a race isn't finished until you cross over that finish line. And you can't control what other people do, but you've got to be able to seize that opportunity if it presents itself. And if you are patient and you sort of keep your cards close to your chest and you can play them when you need to, and it does become tactical. So yeah, I think patience. And I took the lead at CCC with 30 minutes of running to go, 8 kilometers left of a 100-kilometer race. And so yeah, my pacing was really good, and that pacing came from me being patient and attacking the race when I could.
Yeah, and like Tom said earlier, leaving a little bit in the tank for the end too. Tom, thank you so much. It's been great chatting to you and getting all of the tips for ultra running. So, have you guys signed up for one, or maybe you're thinking you're a little bit keen now? Let us know in the comments below if there are any top tips that you have for us, if you've done one before, and we'll see you next time on the Running Channel.